First of all, on behalf of the board and the management and staff of Solomon Airlines, I'd like to welcome and thank the media to be with us here again. It was in April when we first met, and we thought it would be timely for us to update you on the progress since we last met. And again, I also want to highlight that the media is an important partner, and hence our recognition of the opportunities we should make use of to brief the media and work together with the media in promoting and furthering the objectives of our national airline. I'd like to start firstly to acknowledge a number of entities. First of all, as you can see, through this difficult time, Solomon Airlines is still flying, and there's been a lot of hard work, right from the cleaner to the CEO and the board. A lot of people are working to keep the business going, keep the planes in the air. And we acknowledge the CEO, the pilots, engineers, the executive team, and all in the airlines, all the hard work. And also particularly our shareholder, the government of Solomon Islands, through the various ministries, the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Communication and Aviation, the Ministry of Tourism and Culture, Tourism Solomons, for the strong support. In various ways, they have come forward to assist and partner with the airlines to see the progress we've achieved thus far. I need to also make special mention to our development partners, particularly Australia and New Zealand governments. They have provided very strong support through the embassies here in Honiara, and we acknowledge them and thank them. And the general public, thank you, everyone. Thank you enough for you all work for Fly-a-Law Solomon Airlines, the trust and the confidence time you fly with the motor airplane blue me, domestic routes, and also the international. And a few weeks ago, we stand up here and I saw all our Solomon Islanders boarding the A320 to go to work overseas, seasonal worker. And it was a special sight to see, Solomon Islanders from all walks of life, different provinces, queuing up to seek a future through employment overseas. And there's Solomon Airlines helping to make this dream come true for many Solomon Islanders. And it was quite a special time for me as chair to see this. So we thank the public for your support, and all our partners, business partners and creditors, other state-owned enterprises. It is really partnership in very, very difficult times. Joining me in this session is my management team. We have Mr. Brett Webbers online from overseas in Brisbane, our CEO. Welcome, Brett, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Chairman.
We have Mr. Peter Sogoilo, our finance manager, and Mr. Colin Sigimanu, marketing manager. And they will also share with you various aspects of our progress thus far. We are working on a new strategy for long-term business, and we are talking with the government, and we're seeking opportunities with World Bank funded programs in the Solomons to look at how we can strengthen and build a more coherent and practical strategy going forward. And a lot of the success on any strategy going forward basically hinges on the opening of our borders. And so when you come to think of it, Solomon Airlines is the link with the rest of the world, cargo and passengers. And so the timing for the opening of borders again is one we are really looking forward to. So we look to the government for guidance, and we look to the public for supporting the government so that UMISAWE continue to have a safe and secure interaction with the rest of the world, because Solomon Airlines is the link to the rest of the world for passenger movements. I will take this time now to allow the CEO to share on the progress thus far with various operations, particularly in the charter environment, the leasing, and some of the new developments. And we'll move on to the other updates from the two managers. Over to you, Brett.
Okay, well, in terms of charter, charter is not a consistent way of earning money, but at the same time, it is the only option available to us at the moment, since we are not allowed to fly general scheduled services and to the Solomons or anywhere else for that matter. So we have a Friday flight that flies from Brisbane to Honiara and back to Brisbane, with a limited number of passengers allowed. For the whole of July and most of August, we weren't allowed to carry any passengers as a result of the new Delta variant of the COVID virus. However, the government has recently allowed a limited number of people to start flying again. And the rest of the Friday flight is filled up with cargo, and that cargo is obviously important stuff for the country, and in some instances even the airline, spare parts for our domestic operation, etc. As far as charters go, we've done a number of charters to China, picking up vaccines, which we've delivered to both Honiara and to Tarawa. We've done flights picking up construction workers and brought them to Honiara from China, as well as taken some to as well. We've done a significant amount of flying for Nauru Airlines, and we've taken seasonal workers from a number of different countries in the South Pacific to Australia, mainly Brisbane and Sydney, sometimes Hobart. But, the charters all take a huge amount of planning, time and effort, and many of them get cancelled at the last minute for a number of reasons, some of which is COVID related, some of which is capacity for quarantine in the host countries. There's a limitation to the number of people that can be taken into any country, and that's driven largely around the country's ability to provide quarantine facilities, just like Solomon's, in fact. So that's, and sometimes, of course, there's price as well. Somebody pops up with a better price and the charter flight is cancelled. Nonetheless, we work extremely hard at generating charters. The Brisbane-based crew are really working exceptionally hard to make the A320 a success. And within Solomon Airlines, within the Solomon Islands itself, we obviously have a domestic operation, which is a Dash 8, and 2 Twin Otters. We had a third Twin Otter, which we leased to Air Kiribati because they needed another Twin Otter very badly. And for the whole of last year, and in fact up to June this year, we only used 2 of the 3 Twin Otters that we actually had in Honiara. So we elected to lease the aircraft because it generates much needed income for the company. And that obviously comes with a number of compromises that we have to make in terms of having a spare aeroplane available just sitting around in case one breaks. We don't have that anymore. So we are clearly reliant on having to recover some of those cancelled flights over weekends due to weather or sometimes mechanical breakdowns, etc. So anyway, that's where we are with that. The domestic service is operating at about 60% of what it used to. And obviously the international service, I can't even relate passenger numbers to what we used to fly because we fly so few passengers. Other problems that we have are because of the decline in worldwide flying. It's become extremely difficult to get parts shipped from anywhere in the world to Brisbane in order to meet our weekly flight to Honiara. For example, the number of flights between Australia and the USA is about 10% of what it used to be. And we just have to work exceptionally hard to get parts onto a flight that flies to Sydney or Brisbane and then get the parts to Brisbane and bring them up to Honiara. That is a constraint for us, and it's one that we have to manage. It's also made getting parts to the Solomon Islands very expensive as well. The other problem that we have is that the crew for the Dash 8 and the A320 all have to go to simulator training in Melbourne, and with health restrictions in Melbourne, it makes it, and Brisbane, Australia, and Solomon Islands makes the round trip for the Dash 8 crew very, very long. It used to take a week. We could send people from Honiara to Melbourne and get them back to Honiara within a week, having done their training. It used to cost us the equivalent of about $12,000 for a crew. Now we have to send the same crew to Brisbane, 2 weeks in quarantine. Then they go to Melbourne, do their simulator training, come back to Brisbane, wait for another flight to Honiara, and then spend 3 weeks in quarantine. So the cost of training a crew has gone from $12,000 per crew to about $51,000 per crew. So that's the sort of thing that we've had to deal with. The cost of compliance has risen hugely. And we also have great difficulty in having to find workarounds to get people trained. That includes the use of Zoom or Microsoft Teams, etc. And we are fully compliant. We still have an IOSA certificate, which is the highest qualification that we can get from an international body. And we did the IOSA audit in February. It was a remote audit, and we have another one coming up shortly. So we are in good shape from a regulatory perspective. We're in good shape from a compliance perspective. We're just waiting for the borders to open so that we can restart flying.
Thank you, Fred. There are some good developments you would have seen recently also on the domestic front, and the promotion and marketing to get our plane, more business for our planes. I'll let Colin share on this front.
Thank you, Chairman. As the CEO has already touched on, our domestic flying has been reduced a lot. And it's part of our cost-saving exercise. So basically, we are still flying a scheduled domestic service from Mondays to Fridays only, and the weekends are reserved for aircraft maintenance, for engineers to work on the airplanes, and for any recoveries from disruptions that we may incur during the week. And I say that we've had so many disruptions. We've been experiencing so many disruptions, and basically we're almost recently have been flying 7 days a week now, because the recoveries are all operating over Saturday and Sunday, which is increasing our cost as well. But our passengers are important. So that's on the domestic service. In terms of initiatives, we earlier this year, we launched the YUMI Together holidays as part of the YUMI Together campaign that was launched by the Prime Minister last year. The holidays package is really taking off. It's becoming very popular. The private sector initially made use of it, buying packages to visit our domestic destinations. But with the public service now coming on board, we have now seen a marked increase in travel under the UMI Together holidays. In fact, my team, the marketing team, has just reported to me late yesterday afternoon that the months of December and January for a particular resort in Morale, Milkfish, has been totally booked out. And that's basically coming from the public servants who are taking more and more interest in utilizing the UMI Together holidays. So, and I think our forward booking profile is the graph is actually going north. So those sort of incentives are really helping us with our revenue and our cash flow. But they are also a very positive sign for our struggling operators in the provinces, who the package is also aimed at assisting them in the absence of international tourists coming in. So the aim of the package, as we initially wanted it to do, is actually being realized, and we're hoping that more and more of our unknown operators who are participants in the UMI Together holidays will also start to receive clients. Our operators out in the provinces are struggling to survive, and the UMI Together holidays package is assisting in generating the much needed revenue that they will need to sustain and maintain the facilities on the ground. So that's worked out very well for us.
Thank you, Colin. We continue to face additional challenges, and the rising fuel price has really crept up and increased our operating costs. I'd get the our Head of Finance, Mr. Peter Sogoilo, to share on some highlights on the finance side.
Thank you, Chairman. As the Chairman and my CEO has highlighted, we are operating under very challenging environment. Despite this challenging environment, we just had our August report, financial report extracted. In overall, in terms of our performance from our projected numbers, in terms of our profit and loss, we are better off by 11 million. We have projected around 23 million loss. Our current loss is around 12 million. So that's where the 11 million, where we are. So things are, hard, but I think there are some positive signs. And this is driven by, as Brett said, additional charters. We have generated about 20 million over and above what we have projected. Yeah. So things and the weekly cargo flight has still been generating good revenue, and from June, as my colleague Colin has highlighted, with this UMI Together package, it's showing some increase in our domestic revenue. So those are some of the positive drivers driving these numbers here. In terms of our projection cost-wise, as we speak, the A320 is in Singapore to undergo its normal C-check. We have projected around 4 million. It will cost us about 4 billion, so that's in our projection. Last week we paid half of that to the service providers there in Singapore. As we, the other thing that we've done is, as my CEO has highlighted, to ease our cash flow, we have leased two of our twin otters to air occupancy. That's generating around in fixed cost, because it's cost about 25,000 US. So that's 50 per month for the two, plus we charge them flying hours of about 220 per hour for using those aircraft. So that's kind of some of the ways we're trying to do to ease up our cash flow burdens. I think that's what I can update us.
Thank you, Peter. As I alluded to the cost of fuel, you would have seen just recently we increased our airfares slightly, and that's by 7%. The fuel price has gone up by 56% recently, and so we were forced to raise our airfare slightly to recoup some of that cost. As you have heard from the CEO, we are looking at more means to increase our revenue, maximize the revenue from these various charters and leases, and keep our costs low. There are some areas that we are really struggling with, and it's the state of our runways and airports in the country. And it's still rough and causing downtime. When heavy rain, we can't get to our provincial airstrips, a number of them, and we lose revenue because of that. And also our repair and maintenance costs may still go higher because of the rough landings that we experience out in the provinces. So it would be a great boost for the airline if the government continue to improve our airstrips in the country and increase flying times for our aircrafts. I'd just like to touch on the international flying and border reopening again. As you know, tourism recovery will be fully based on the reopening. We are seeing the countries in our region working to try and reopen their borders, with Fiji announcing that they will reopen soon, and each country approaching it differently. And we've also heard from the government the target to have a good high percentage of our population vaccinated. Solomon Airlines is closely involved with the Solomon Islands government in this evolving COVID-19 protocols. And as we continue to refine our procedures and response plans, we hope that we will reach a stage soon where we will have more people traveling in and out of Honiara in our international flights. In our previous meeting in April, I shared my strong confidence in the future of the airlines. I maintain this outlook, and I can speak on behalf of the board, the management, and all of us in the airline that with the ongoing support from the government, with support from our partners, and with a special attention given to the airlines, we can see through this difficult time and be sustainable in the medium to long-term future. The projections going forward is still looking good if the borders are open. And we know the government still plan to host the games in 2023. And we look forward to that exciting time when, we can see more people traveling in and out of the country. But it will require all of us in the country to work with our government to implement whatever plans there is to prevent the community transmission and protect our country. Many times I've observed our people board and disembark our domestic planes with confidence and trust in the airline. These experiences remind us of the significance of Solomon Airlines as a national carrier the significance, essential role that Solomon Airlines plays in our economy, in health services, supporting the private sector growth, particularly in tourism and businesses. And I want to reiterate again the importance of Solomon Airlines being our national carrier. And we look to the government to support us continuing with this position, continuing with this strategy. And so on behalf of all of us, I wish to acknowledge and thank everyone in the airline, again, from the most junior to the most senior, and the board, for the continued dedication and hard work. And I thank you all for your support to Solomon Airlines.